how to actually get your goals into Jira. And there's a couple of ways we can practically do this. And the best way, or I don't know if it's the best way, but a really good way to start here is with the native goals feature in Jira. So if you're in Jira and you go over to your More tab here, or it might already be on the left side, or you just click the app switcher, there's actually going to be an option for goals that everybody has access to. And a lot of people actually don't know that this exists. And it's really just Atlassian's implementation of tracking goals, things like OKRs, KPIs, even things like EOS, right? You can track all of the things that you want to accomplish on a longer time frame or horizon in here. Now, there's more than one way to do this, not just in goals, but you could do it in Jira directly with different hierarchies. But this is probably the easiest way to get started, because all you have to do is open up your goals. You click create goal, and let's say I want to let's come up with a goal. Let's say I want to launch our new website. Launch new website. There we go. So this is going to be my goal. I want to accomplish this in the next quarter. I could set the type that this is. If I'm using like OKRs, I could click on objective, or rocks if I'm using EOS. My target date might be, let's say, end of this quarter, which is going to be September. And then I'm going to be the owner. Let's click create. And there we go. A brand new goal is created, and it actually has a place to live and be tracked in within Atlassian. Now, in a minute, I'll show you how to actually pull this goal directly into the work that you're doing inside of Jira. That way you have very clear alignment on the thing that you're working towards, whether that's a task, a subtask, whatever it is. You'll see the roll up into what this actually contributes to. But the first thing I want to show is the context information that we could add to this goal. So we could add a description, we could add some comments. And if you use Jira pretty often, this is going to look very similar, right? You have your overview with the description, then you have your context field on the right side, where you could actually assign parent goals. So let's say this launch new website, the parent goal of this is actually to do $1 billion in revenue this year. So that might be the parent goal that we have. And when I set that, I now have a sub goal under my $1 billion in revenue that I could look at. And now I know that this particular thing that we need to accomplish as a team, as a company, as a department, always rolls up to this parent goal, which is the revenue goal, the big thing that we want to accomplish as a company. So that is a very great, handy hierarchy. We could also add sub items here. I could add teams that are associated with this. For example, a marketing team might be associated with this goal directly. So we'll associate that there. And then we could add our updates into here. So we have our overview tab, which is general context. Updates allows us to post updates weekly or kind of whenever we want on what's happening and the different updates or status items on this goal to make sure everybody's aligned and kind of knows what's happening day to day. Then we have the Jira tab. Again, I'll jump into this in a moment when we go to the Jira layer. But then we have a couple of things like learning, risk, decision, and I would actually ignore projects altogether. I tend not to use them. It's kind of a place to store and track projects, which is basically Jira. So I'm not really sure why it exists, to be honest, because we're going to use Jira for that portion of it, because a lot of us, if not all of us, are already using Jira anyway. So that's our goals. We go in here, we set up our goals, we have everything aligned on like the big things that we want to do over the next couple of quarters, couple of months, whatever it is. And there is one more way we could do this directly in Jira, and that is just to set up a different hierarchy. So by default, if I go into settings and I go into work items, there is a work type hierarchy that we can add onto if we wanted to. Now, you do have to be on the premium version of Jira, which is kind of the big downside of this. So you only have an option to do this if you're on premium of Jira. And that's kind of why I don't recommend it quite as much. But this is definitely something you can still do over the goals kind of directory that we just looked at. All you have to do is go in and you'll typically have like your epic, your task, your story, and you can just add a new level at the top. You could call this goals, you could call this initiatives, whatever you want to do. You can add your level of hierarchy here, and then you save your changes, make sure your work type's associated. And then instead of going into a separate goals directory, all you do is create maybe a different project, something like a goals project, something like this, where you could stat or put all of your goals, and then you could associate this or link them to the general work that's happening in the organization. Now, this probably isn't my favorite way for a couple of reasons, and I'll show you why. But linking the goals that we have that we looked at in the directory Makes it super, super easy for us to actually bring that into Jira. And linking work items is a little bit heavier and more dense because we have to assign a type of link. Like, is it a blocker? Is it a linked issue, a relevant thing? You have to assign those versus just going in and assigning a goal onto the Jira task. So that's kind of why I like the goals. And I'll show you how that works in just a moment. But this is the second option. You could just set up a new hierarchy or even just set up a new project with the same hierarchy and just track your goals on a simple board like this. Now, when pulling in your work into Jira, the simplest way, or your goals into Jira, the simplest way of doing that is by opening whatever tasks you need. I'll do it on this goals layer as an example. And all we need to do is make sure that our goals field is inside of this work item. To do that, just go to configure on the bottom right. And then all you have to do is search for goals in the side panel. And then you'll have a field option called goals. And you can do this from anywhere in Jira. You drag and drop that in. Let's put it right under the reporter, make it super visible at the top. Let's go back to our work item. And now we have our goals field option. This is available to everybody in Jira out of box. Everybody has access to this. And now I could go in that same goal that we looked at earlier that we created. So that was the launch of the new website. I just created that, very fresh. I could go in and I could search for it in here. And it actually just pulls up whatever's most relevant to me. So I'm going to just click on launch new website. And now what's really cool about this is that I've created my goals, the things I want to accomplish. And now I could create the work items that I have to do or the things I have to work on, the projects, the tasks, the subtasks, and I could align them to the goals directory. So you could think of, as any employee, as any team member is jumping into work in Jira to use Jira. Now, when you go in, you actually know what this rolls up into, or why this thing matters. Why are we rolling out this product? Why are we trying to accomplish this thing? Why are we trying to, solve this problem? We can now align that to goals, which allows our teams to be aligned on one common thing and creates unity within our team and one common goal that we are working towards. So that's how we get those goals directly into Jira work items. Now, the second layer of this is the Jira layer, and I'll dive into that right now. So just to recap, your goals are the top level. That could be in the Jira goals directory if you're using that or if you want to use that. I do recommend trying it out. There are some minor limitations there, but they are great to start out with. The biggest Jira mistake I see being made is when teams try to achieve a goal by implementing Jira, but they miss the execution layer. This is the thing that allows you to achieve your goals inside of your tool layer. And if you're curious how we implement the grid operating system with our clients, hit the first link in the description below.